Hello, welcome to Soul Sisters Synergy, a sisterhood where women of faith come together to learn, heal, and keep it real. Ladies, we'd love for you to join our private Facebook group and join us for our virtual events, including our Testimony Tuesday live recordings, which includes a private Q&A at the end after we finish recording. Today, our guest speaker is Rachel Middleton. She's going to be sharing her story about being raised in a home filled with alcoholism and abuse, and spending years of her life searching for meaning in all the wrong places, including alcohol, toxic relationships, and even witchcraft. When she turned to Jesus, she still had to endure some struggles and a terrible heartbreak that could have shattered her, but God had other plans. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight, Rachel. Go ahead and take it away.
Rachel, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight and share my story. A little backstory. My mom got pregnant with me and had me at 17, unwed. I did not grow up with my birth father. He was a drug addict and a musician. He actually traveled and played with Leonard Skinner and 38 Special in the 70s. I did meet him when I was 19 and found out I have two half brothers, but I didn't grow up with them. And still we're not close, not really close. So my mom fled from Oklahoma when she got pregnant to California to kind of get away from him, and he followed her, but she told him, she couldn't marry him. She didn't want that kind of life for either of us. So she moved in with her sister, my aunt. And she was involved in a church just called the Church in Anaheim, and it was teachings from two Chinese Christians, Watchman Nee and Witness Lee, back in the 70s. You can Google that later. But she met my stepdad, and I just found out recently that he really didn't want to marry her, but my grandma kind of, I guess, coerced and manipulated everything. So they got married. I think I was like almost 3. He got his job transferred him to Texas, and so I'm in Texas now. We lived in the Dallas area, and I remember as early as age 3, I was molested by a family member in a closet. Um, uh, I knew it was wrong, but, it no one ever said it. I didn't share it. I didn't share it with anybody. I just knew that it was wrong. We didn't grow up in church. My mom was involved in that church, and my stepdad was as well. Um, but some weird things happened and he was excommunicated. And so for the longest time, he did not allow us to have a Bible in the house or even go to church. But my mom did plant seeds in me. The earliest I can remember was memorizing Romans 10, 13, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. So I had that in my head. I just didn't know Jesus. I think my mom and my aunt kind of tried to say that I got saved around 3, but I didn't live it. I never repented. Um, but there was alcoholism from my stepdad. There was abuse. Um, they never really argued in front of me, at least tried not to, like I did here, but there was a lot of emotional abuse and mental abuse. I did see physical abuse. I can remember early on where my mom and my dad were kind of fighting in the hallway. And I don't think they knew that I was there, but I saw my dad break my mom's finger. And so that was kind of traumatic for me. Um, See, I am ADHD, so I'm trying not to flip-flop around. Um, so my dad signed us up for through the YMCA. I think I was going to preschool there, Y&D and Princesses, so there were campouts. So those were some good memories, not all of them, because um, I just I don't think that I felt love from him. Like, if I would say I love you, it was always met back with me too. It was never I love you. I was never told I was beautiful. Um, Never said I was pretty. So, I didn't have confidence. I was a really shy, um, introverted kid. It was hard for me to talk to people and make friends. I had friends, um, and I was a really short, I mean, I'm 5'2", and this is as tall as I've been since, like, 6th grade. So, uh, I was diagnosed, around 1st grade. I had to repeat the 1st grade, but I was diagnosed with autism, but we didn't talk about it. It wasn't something that was talked about back then, so, but in my head, I heard my mom and the doctor say "artistic," so I just kinda ran with ran with it. Um, so, yeah. Um but, we were living in Richardson area back then, during the YMCA thing, and then we moved to a little city, kind of northeast of Dallas called Mesquite. We moved into a house, and, uh, it was good. I made some friends in the neighborhood. It was still, I felt very awkward just because I always felt like there was something wrong with me. Um, but my mom just was like my best friend. She was my person. She was I think she was the strongest woman I know, but she tried to do the Christian thing and stick it out with my stepdad. But I remember them splitting up and getting back together so many times that I lost count. So it wasn't stable. I can remember times where, he'd be drinking and the music was up loud. Um, I would have to sleep with my door shut because I couldn't sleep. It was just, very loud. I can remember times where he was in the backyard shooting at the neighbors' dogs, like like one of those big police pistols, and he had gone to jail. I remember him going to jail because I don't know if he walked or he drove to the corner store, but he was drunk, at the store, and so he was in jail, and we'd be alone. Somebody tried to break in our house, which is traumatic for, like, a little seven-year-old kid. By the time we're in that house, I'm 7. Um I do remember having an 8th birthday. I say that because I had birthdays taken away from me. Like, I wasn't allowed to have a birthday. Not from my mom, but my dad. And I say that because, back then, like, I mean, even now, but Christian women, you're supposed to submit to your husband and be obedient and all of that. But, my mom really tried. And I didn't understand any of that. But it was really, horrible for me because I had no birthday. But 8 is my favorite number, but that's the birthday that I remember the most. And, so anyways, we would have to leave in the middle of the night, to go and hide. Like, we would stay at some friends' houses because my dad had been so drunk and violent. And, again, the people's house that we stayed at, I was molested, um, again. And that that was, traumatic experience. I was also molested by a next door neighbor, um, and it's almost like my body was, like, outside of my body when it was happening, and I froze, and so I didn't know what to do. Um, but ironically, I told the family member that had originally molested me what the neighbor did, and he beat him up. So, I don't know, it's weird. I'm very forgiving, even as a kid, I was forgiving, and I don't understand it even to this day, how I can be so forgiving. Um, it's one of my downfalls, I don't know, but, the alcoholism got so bad, we finally left for a good year, um, moved into an apartment, complex by my school, and we were living there. I became angry because my dad went to rehab, and I thought it was for my stepdad for alcoholism. And I remember being made to go on like family day, and I was supposed to be happy. I mean, I'm just a confused kid. Because I don't know exactly what was going on, but it wasn't for alcoholism, it was for depression. And, uh, I think we were actually moving back home after this year. This was in 6th grade. Um, my mom had sent me to family to stay with them for a couple weeks in the summer while she had all of our stuff moved back to the house. So when she came to pick me up and we were driving home, pulling in the driveway, because in my mind, my stepdad's gonna be fixed and everything's gonna be great. Um, but we're pulling in the driveway. He's sitting in the garage in a chair with the beer in his hand, lights are out, music's on, and I just felt this punch in the gut, like, "What's going on?" Like, "Why would you agree to go back?" And we come home to this. And so that is when I became a very angry kid. And I will reiterate, like, before, I was never allowed to express my feelings because my dad was raised in an era where children are seen and not heard. So I could never express how anything made me feel. And I think he was angry towards me because, like, so my stepdad is Hispanic and, we're white, and he thought that I was ashamed of him. I was never ashamed of him. It was the way that he treated my mom and me that I was ashamed of. Because I had some friends over sometimes, but when you have an alcoholic parent, you don't want kids to know. Like, even my cousin Rebecca never knew, never knew that he was abusive or an alcoholic. And, I can remember camping one time, um, something fell from a tree or something, hit my mom in the eye, and he didn't take care of her, and kids see that. And so that just, I never understood, like, how come he couldn't care for her when she had this big lump on her eye? And my mom is the sweetest, most nicest person you will ever meet. Um, and I think that's where I get my forgiving spirit is from her because she's always been so forgiving to a fault. Um, but then I found out my dad's job transferred him to Houston. So that's where I live now. I was heartbroken because the friends that I did have, I didn't want to leave them. And I didn't want to leave my cousins, Rebecca, her brother, and my aunt. But here we are, I moved to Houston. Um, I'm probably forgetting something, but uh anyways, I moved across the street from this family who had a son who was my age. And we started dating um shortly shortly after we moved. I'm in 7th grade by this time, and I got held back in 1st grade, so I'm an age older than everybody else. So I'm 14, I think, almost 15 in 7th grade. Well, I would witness my stepdad drinking before work, screwdrivers. So I would do the same thing. Because I'm angry from all that's going on. My mom was not a stay-at-home mom. She worked full time, plus had to come home and cook and clean and all of that. Um, so I started dating the guy across the street, and we dated. Um, I was almost 15, so we dated 5.5 years, all through like 8th grade up until right after I graduated high school. I was probably 21 when we broke up, but I will get to that. Anyways, um, I was raised to wait for marriage, but I ended up giving myself to him, um, because I thought we were gonna get married. His mom and my mom both thought that as well. Um, so anyways, I'm drinking. I'm going to school drunk. No teacher notices at all, like not one, but my friends did. And so they alerted my counselor, and she pulled me in the office and talked with me. I still remember her name. Her name was, Miss Royal. I don't know why, but it just sticks in my head. Um, and my boyfriend, his one of his parents worked for a company where they were gonna have, like, a company day at, Astroworld, which is like Six Flags. Um, and so I had saved up my allowance, um, because the food and the entrance was free, but I could just spend money on, like, games and souvenirs. Well, there was a time where I started my monthly. and I was wearing baggy clothes. My stepdad had told me to tuck my shirt in before school, and I was like, no. And I couldn't tell him, but he grounded me just for that day. And I am skipping over a lot of the abuse that I saw growing up, but there was a lot of mental and emotional as well as the physical. But I got grounded for that day only. So I was very upset because I had worked really hard to save up like $50. Like it's not a whole lot of money, but you know, back then it is a lot of money, but it was a lot of money for a kid. Um, so I got grounded for just that day, and it it just kind of told me like my dad just didn't care. He was spiteful, and it was just it was a lot of spitefulness. Um, and so I started drinking more, and I can remember I kind of pretended to commit suicide, and I did like it was like a safety pin scratch, but I was on the phone with my friend during the time, and she called my mom on her line, um, and told her. So my mom came and checked on me, and I had already put a Band-Aid on it, so there wasn't really anything there. But my mom spoke with my counselor and told her. My counselor told my mom, you need to get her out of the house for a little bit. So my mom got permission to send me to a cousin's in Plano, Texas, for a couple weeks. And like I said, I had no confidence. She got me glamour shot pictures, which I thought I looked like beautiful. And I took them to school, and I got back and showed some of my friends, and then some girls got a hold of my pictures, and I'm walking behind them, and then they're like, "Is that really ugly girl?" And it just stuck in my head for like forever. And um so I never felt pretty. I just felt like the odd person. And, I was picked on. I have no idea why, but I was. And I mean, it's rolled off my back now. I mean, I don't know, for whatever reason, maybe whatever is going on in their homes growing up, but, um, that bothered me. But, my dad was drinking more. Um, so we separated again, and we moved to Greenville, Texas, to be with my family. And my dad uh, had called and talked to my aunt and was like pressuring her to send my mom and me back. And I think by this time I'm in high school. I think I'd already finished my freshman year in high school. Still dating that guy. Um, my mom got accepted into Parish Junior College for a nursing program. And I really wanted that for her, but I also wanted to move back to Houston to be with my boyfriend. So I let my dad and my aunt convince me that he had changed. And I've kept this guilt for years because I begged my mom to move back. And so it kind of killed her chances at a career, because she just, when we were living in Mesquite before we moved to Houston, she was working at a really good company and just never found a really good, stable job when we had moved away. So I felt bad. Um, but a friend later on told me that my mom was the adult, and she made the choice no matter what I said. But we did move back, and my dad lied. He didn't change. In fact, he found drinking buddies, and it got really bad. Um, I remember one of his buddies, I was asleep in my room, and I started having a dream that there was a waterfall in my room. Well, I woke up, and this guy is peeing in my laundry hamper right inside my door. So I started screaming, and my mom comes in there and gets him out. And but that wasn't the last straw. Like, my dad had gotten drunk, and I don't know what happened in the bathroom, but he was in their bathroom, and he picked up the tank, and it fell and broke on his hand and cut his hand. And I'm just seeing blood. Like, it was like a murder scene in there, just everywhere. But he's just being drunk, and even his buddy is there, and he's like, "Look what you're doing to your kid and your wife." Like, the guys and I call it too, and he can see, like, how my dad was behaving. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was another night, I'd woken up around 2 in the morning to my mom telling my dad, like, they were in the living room, and she just kept saying, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." And I go in there, and he is just, telling her, it's like she got pregnant by him when I was 4 and, lost my sister, like, right after birth. Um, but he was blaming her for that. So she almost died having her, and, didn't have proper care. Um, but I guess I was trying to be a bold teenager, and also he had just had, like, his 4th total hip replacement, so I didn't think he could walk very well. I told him, and I'm like, you don't disrespect your parents and, like, tell them what to do," at least when I was a kid. And so I was like, "Why don't you shut up so she'll stop telling you shut up, and I can go back to bed." And he got up out of that chair and darted towards me, and then I ran for the front door. It's not a very big apartment, but I ran for the front door trying to unlatch it, and he's trying to grab me, and we're kind of in the hallway. Um, his arm pulled back, and I just felt him, like, punch me in the face, like, from behind me, and my mom's on him, and so I'm just in a panic, and I'm screaming, like, I don't know what to do. I felt like my life was being threatened, so I ran in the kitchen and grabbed a knife, and they're both, like, chasing me, um, and I just, they were like, "Put the knife down." I was like, "If you step one step closer to me, I'm gonna, like, shove it in your neck." I don't know, but I was just, like, just I was panicked, um and, so my dad came for me, and I ran into my bathroom from the hallway and then shut my bathroom door from my bedroom, and I just had to, like, shove a washcloth in my mouth to keep from screaming because I was so panicked, and I didn't know what to do. And, so that was it. Like, my mom and I decided we were leaving, and I believe we actually had to sleep in the car. Like, we had gone to talk to an apartment complex, and, like, literally by the grace of God, we got it. Um I don't remember how, because my dad would not help us move, but we moved, and, that was the last time they separated. I think I was 17 by then, and, I started cosmetology school. We didn't talk to him for years, and, still dating the same guy all through this. Um, I don't say his name because I still talk to his sister. But, uh I get my cosmetology license, um, and I'm still drinking. I still drink. It just wasn't all the time, but there were drugs mixed in. I did acid. I have a lot of memory issues from that. Um, Smoked some marijuana. During that time, I got to meet my birth father. I was 19. I met him while he was in prison, and I met my half brothers. Uh, and then my uh sorry. I did drugs with my birth father, when he was out of prison. Just popped pills. I don't even know what they were, but, I guess I spent a couple of weeks in Oklahoma with all of them, and it was just like a drunken mess. I mean, just drunk, doing pills, whatever was around, because he's a musician, and I thought that was cool, and so I was just like, "This is awesome," partying all the time. Um But, and I'm still feeling like Jesus in the back of my head, like, "This is wrong, this is wrong." But I ignored it, and I pushed it all down because I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and it felt good. And, anyways, I think I had graduated high school, and then, my boyfriend broke up with me. He started a relationship with someone else, and my world was shattered because I put all of my happiness on him, and then I didn't have that anymore, and so then the drinking really started. Um, I I was miserable, and I started smoking. I hated cigarette smoke, but I started smoking because I was like, "Well, I'm just gonna do whatever." I hated the smell, hated the taste, but I did it, and, I was partying all the time, um, hung out with some friends, and we would go to bars. I drove drunk, which is something that I said I would never do, but I did, and I don't know how I made it home one night. Um, I'm glad that I didn't kill anybody. I'm glad nobody killed me, but, I'm it was like 3 or 4 miles, but still, driving drunk is driving drunk, and I drove drunk home. I would plan on the days that I had off, I would work that night and go out to the bars and get just smashed because, the next day I could stay home and recover with the hangover. But my life was spinning out of control. Um, I started into witchcraft, and, that was really bad. Like, I bought all the books, I bought the candles, the crystals. Um, I was in the middle of getting things to do a spell on a neighbor because I thought he was hot and I wanted him to like me. And so I was gonna do a love potion. I actually I actually went to his door and I was going to give it to him, but, I chickened out because, of course, there's Jesus in the back of my head, telling me, "Don't do this, don't do this." And so then I was like, "Okay, well, I'd rather him like me for me than some stupid spell I could do." Um, I mean, I laugh at it now, but I was serious. And then I, of course, wanted money. And so I was going to do a mini spell. And this was around the time where that movie, The Craft, came out. So I went and got the specific color candles. I had this bird I hated that was given to me, this cockatiel, mean bird, but I was going to use that as my sacrifice. So I'm an hour and a half away from Galveston, and so you have to do this, like the books tell you, you have to do it near a body of water. And so I got all of my stuff and I packed up that dumb bird and I went to Galveston. And so I drew my circle and I drew the pentagram and I set everything up, lit my candles, and then it was like all of a sudden it started raining. But then of course there's Jesus telling me, you know, read that book, the spell book that I had. And it said that whatever spells you do comes back to you sevenfold negatively. So then I thought, well, the only person I knew that had money would be my stepdad. And so I didn't do the spell. I let my bird go. I just released him. I didn't want to. I don't know. I was seriously gonna go through with it. But, so I didn't do it because I just figured, like, my dad had already had some heart attacks, and I figured he'd probably have a heart attack and die, and I'm the beneficiary, so I'd get that money, but at what cost? And so I did not do that. Um, Fast forward a little bit more, I think I was around, well, I'll backtrack a little bit. Since I'd already given myself to my boyfriend and we broke up, I was like, "Well, I already did it once," and so I turned to sexual sin, and um, I was messing around. I dated a married guy, and I knew better. I mean, he had separated from his wife, but I knew her, and, I knew it was wrong. I did it anyways. Um, I had one night stands. Uh I messed around with somebody I was the other woman, I didn't know he was engaged, um, but I found out, like, none of his family told me anything. Uh, I think I actually messed around with another married man. I didn't know he was married either, but, I actually started working for male strippers. I was their renter. They'd come into our salon, to pass out flyers, and so me and the ladies went to go see their show, and then they announced they needed, a runner, and so a runner is somebody who goes and, helps them get ready for their skits, and then picks up their cash on the floor, and also passes out merch and sells merch. So me being the honest sort of person that I was, I could have taken more tip money than I did, but I didn't. I wish I had, but I got pretty involved in that. Um, I mean, it's the sex industry, so I saw it all, and I even got roped into being a videographer for one of the women that worked for the company, and, like I said, I black out a lot of things, but I have no idea how we got to this house, but it was a brand new house this woman and her husband bought. She rented, I guess it's rented, she rented this, the stripper, um, to come and do a show for her 13-year-old son, her husband, and her father in this brand new home in Sugarland. So it's a very ritzy, giant, like giant house. And there was no furniture in it yet. All there was a bar stool. So that's what she used for the radio. And I'm videoing, and she strips completely naked. And then there's Jesus, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I just, I'm drinking. So I'm ignoring. And I'm, you know, I didn't drive, but she did, but I drank. I was completely just out of it. Um, to make matters worse, I messed around with one of the strippers. And he had a fiance. I was bad. But his apartment had, it looked like the inside of a genie bottle, like no joke. And I mean, round bed, like the sheer stuff everywhere, pinks, purples, blue. It was just very genie bottle, strange. But yeah. And there was one of the shows that we were at was at Gillies, from Rhinestone Cowboys, but this was in Pasadena, Texas. And that was the night I quit because one of the other guys tried to force himself on me. And so I was like, I've had enough. And I decided to join the Navy. And so I joined boot camp. I didn't make it out. I got injured, broke my ankle, and stress fractured my hips and my pelvic bone. But during my stay there, I found out through some of the scans that I had that I have a heart-shaped uterus, called a bicornuate uterus. And I was told that um, I would probably never be able to have kids, and if I got pregnant, I would miscarry. And so that broke me. Like, I had always wanted to be a mom. And so when I found out my cousin got pregnant and miscarried, my cousin Rebecca, um, I wanted to come home and help take care of her. And so my counselor showed me a way to get out of the Navy without being a dishonorable discharge. And so it wasn't all a lie because I knew alcoholism. So I lied and said that I was an alcoholic. And I had drove drunk. I had blacked out many times. And so that's what I put on my form. And so I got out on alcoholism. And so they said I could rejoin if I did like 30 days in AA, which I never did. But so I moved to Fort Worth to come take care of her for a couple weeks. And that's all it lasted. I came back to Houston and started working in an office because I couldn't do hair standing because of my injuries. And I worked with a woman who was a fiance to my husband's brother. Um, but they tried to set me up with his older stepbrother, but he's an alcoholic. And I dated an alcoholic. I didn't want to date another one. I grew up with an alcoholic father. So I told the guys like, no, we can be friends, but I can't date you. Um, but we had all agreed to go meet at a mutual place for a barbecue. But he never shows up. And so my husband shows up and we stayed up talking. Actually, my friend and my husband's mother were painting their fingernails at the table at her house. That was the mutual place we met. Um, and my husband, he comes over and starts painting my nails. And so we're just talking all night. And I told him the next guy I date, I'm gonna marry because I'm done. I was done. But he didn't hear. All he saw was boobs and butt and just, that's all he's thinking. But so we dated for a year. We moved in together, which there's Jesus, like, this is wrong. You shouldn't be living with somebody before you're married, but we did it anyways. Um, I got pregnant, which was a surprise to me because I was told I could never have kids. And so I was ecstatic. I was so excited. Um, But a few months in, I'm having cramps, I'm bleeding, and I call, the clinic where I had gone, and the doctor didn't even, like, tell me to come in to like, he just said, "Will you come in the morning and we'll do a D&C?" And I was like, "Nope, click." And I went to the hospital. Um, I think maybe I was around 5 months pregnant, and the doctor, the ER, I guess, sent me back to do an ultrasound, and he's just swimming around in there, fine. But it's just one of those things that some women have is bleeding. So, but I was having contractions. And so and I was still working. I was still working. And I was working at a hair salon by then. Um, 35 weeks, and I'm having back pain, like bad. Like I could barely walk. And kind of like before that, I would have these pains, and I would call my husband from work, and he would come, and we would go to the ER, and it was nothing. And so we'd go eat at IHOP, and we did that like 3 times. And then finally, the last time at 35 weeks, my cousin Becky comes to help me like track my contractions, and they were probably 5 minutes apart. And then finally my husband comes home, and he's like, and we were not married at the time. We are still living together. Go to the hospital. My water didn't break, but they finally rolled in the ultrasound machine, and he's feet first. So C-section. Um, and so he's born early, nothing wrong, but little jaundice. And so he was there a month, because he was, I think he was 4 pounds, 1 ounce, and they didn't allow babies to come home until they're like 5 pounds. So, um, growing up an only child, I wasn't raised around babies. So I didn't know what to do. Like, we were still keeping our schedule. Um, and I will say I kind of rescued my husband from some of his friends. He uh he didn't have the best of friends. One of them actually went to prison for murder. I had just told him, like, after we had our son, like, you can't be around that anymore. Because we have a family now. And so that that was like right before our friend like did this murder. And uh but we're still, having people over late at night. I didn't change my sleep schedule. I didn't know what to do. Like my mom was a truck driver at the time, didn't have really a lot of people around. Um and so I'm still staying up till 2 in the morning when the baby's waking up to eat. And I'm like, why isn't this kid sleeping? But then it finally hit me, you got to change your schedule. Anyways, my husband's best friend invites me to church, and this is my pivotal point. I go to this church, and I heard the clearest presentation of the gospel, and I just felt that tug. And I didn't get saved that day, but the very next week I came and I surrendered my heart to Jesus. Um, One of the first verses that I memorized since I was like 3 was Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own um, understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. Um, and I gave it all. Like I did, well, not me, Jesus did a 180 in my life. I burned all of my witchcraft stuff, my tarot cards. I did leave out that I was into vampirism. Did I? I said that. I got rid of those too. I burned everything. And I went a little far. I got rid of everything that would everything that was me. I got rid of like my music, my movies. I was a very strict, rigid Christian. I pushed people away because I wanted all God. I wanted all Jesus. And not that you shouldn't be like that, but I was all in and I didn't care what anybody else said. I was very judgy. Um, I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot since I got saved, and I was 27 by then. Um, Fast forward a little bit, I get pregnant when my son is 7 months old, and I'm just like, "Oh, wow, like, how am I gonna take care of 2 kids?" Because by this time, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and we're married. We got married a week after my son was born, It was just the justice of the peace, so never had a wedding. We didn't even tell our parents. We just went and did it. So, still never had a wedding. Um, I get pregnant and, I'm feeling alone because, I didn't know how to be a wife. I didn't know how to be a mom. My husband really didn't have like, neither of us come from good, relationships. Like, his parents were never married. His dad was a drug addict. His mom was a recovering drug addict. And even though she was just loved on him, he didn't show a lot of nurturing. He didn't know how. And so I get pregnant, and I remember going to church the Sunday before I had my second son, and I was probably 20, I was right at 29 weeks. And my Sunday school teacher asked, like, how are you feeling this pregnancy? She actually gave me our baby shower for our second son. And I was like, I'm feeling fine, just something feels kind of off. Well, two that morning, my water breaks. And so go to the hospital, and he's born a week later. I'm in the hospital the whole week. Um, he's born at 30 weeks. And so he's also in the hospital a month with jaundice, and he was 3 pounds, 1 ounce. Um, Fast forward to a little bit further. Oh yeah, I got baptized. I did get baptized. Sorry, ADHD brain. I remember we had lost power, and I had two different shoes on because I couldn't see. And I was pregnant. I couldn't see what shoes I had on. So I had a brown and a black shoe on, and I got baptized. But he got baptized with me, even though I don't think he was saved. But he just wanted to go along with me. So we got baptized one after the other. But a couple years later, um, he was working overnights at the time at Whataburger. And his dad used to take him to the baseball games at I think it's Ranger Stadium in California. I think whatever. No, not Ranger. Whatever it is in California that the California baseball team plays at. But it was that famous preacher Graham, Billy Graham was preaching in that stadium, and he saw the spot where his dad used to take him where they sat, and so that's what attracted him to watch. But he got saved that night. Our son was still in the hospital, and so he was kind of making a deal with God, like, I'll give my heart to you if you save my son, because there was a chance my son wasn't going to survive. He did have a little bit of breathing, just not enough to be on oxygen, I don't think. They called it sticky lungs. But so my husband did get saved. And by then, he's reading a kid's Bible, literally like a little picture Bible you get at the Dollar Tree. I was already in church trying to learn all I could. And he picks up this knowledge and this wisdom like I've never seen before. And I was so jealous. But also, I'm the head of the household. Like before, I was doing it all. And I was so upset because I had to pass the reins to him. And that is so hard because that's not natural. It's not natural for women to want to give up the reins and let your husband be the head. And so we still struggle. I'm gonna lie, I still struggle trying to be like the boss. But so he got saved, and still our marriage wasn't perfect. We ended up getting pregnant again with our third son. And we're living in a little town called Cut and Shoot by this time in a mobile home. We had friends that lived out there, and I wanted to be close to them. So we found a little cute mobile home, and we're out there. I will say, while I was pregnant, you hear on the news sometimes that if you hear celebratory gunfire during like fireworks time, like 4th of July or New Year's Eve, if you catch somebody, you can call it in and get a reward. So I really wanted that reward. So I started praying, let me hear, I want to see the celebratory gunfire so I can get the reward. Okay, well, we had friends over New Year's Eve, and I'm sitting on the couch. I'm big and pregnant, and where it's a futon couch, so it has like the little built-in magazine rack. And my friends in with me were like playing a card game or something. Both of our kids are inside, All of a sudden, I'm hearing celebratory gunfire. Well, guess what? That bullet comes right through the ceiling and whoops right past my belly and hits that magazine rack. Like I picked up the bullet. So I'm like, what in the world? So we call 911 and the sheriff comes out and he says, I'm sorry, but this could be within 2 miles away. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're out in the country. Like, really? So yeah, but God, like protected my belly. And so I had my son. Um, he was only 3 weeks early, so not really considered premature. And I will say, they were all breech. All my kids were breech. So I have the heart-shaped uterus, and there's no room for them to turn and grow to full term. Um, and I'll share this. I used to watch Montel Williams, and he used to have that medium on Sylvia Brown. And there was a story on one day, I'm sorry, in the daytime. Uh there was a woman who had spirits in her house and she kept hearing these footsteps. And then she said she would hear voices in the closet. It was an old house, like built in like the 30s, very early. And she said one night she felt this tap on her shoulder and it was like all these spirits. And I'm just like, okay, okay. So my husband's still working overnight. And I've got my kids in the bed with me and I'm facing this way. I kid you not. I heard voices, like just a crowd of voices, and I felt that same tap. And then I just pulled up the covers and I just started praying, what time I'm afraid I will trust in thee just over and over again. And then it went away. Like I say this because what you open your mind to, um, you're susceptible to it. And so I just kind of like um, never watched the show again and never, you know, because the Bible talks about sorcery and mediums and stuff like that, how it's the devil. So didn't do that. Um, and I'll also add that I was supposed to get my tubes tied with my third son, and I couldn't do it. Like literally on the table, the doctor's about to go in there. I was like, no, stop, I can't. I just knew we needed our Andrew. He's our baby. Um, so I get pregnant again with our fourth son. And we are fighting a lot, my husband and I, because I'm a stay-at-home mom. Um, not a bad mom. I'm a good mom. Uh, but I'm overwhelmed. I've got 4 kids, by this time, and I did get my tube tied with my youngest son. He was born with autism and a few other things. He had partial paralysis on the right side of his face. Um, he has hypotonia, which is low muscle tone, and he was nonverbal. And so, he needed, uh, physical therapy, occupational therapy, um, and then eventually speech. And then we also found out that, he really couldn't see well, and I didn't know. Like, I thought all kids stand this close to the TV, and, I should have known the signs. I didn't wear glasses till a few years ago, so I didn't know what to look for. Um, but, so I had him in therapies, like, as soon as possible, like 4 to 6 months old, and he's still in occupational now, he's almost 17. So, and he talks now. I put him in therapy, for speech, um, as soon as I could, which was almost 3, and so she got him talking from maybe saying 10 words to full sentences in 3.5 months. Um, she was an amazing therapist, but, um my husband, like I said, wasn't very nurturing. And in his eyes, the house should have been clean and everything when he got home, dinner on the table. And I tried, but with 4 kids, it was just hard. And um, I'm an artist by nature, and so we're not very organized. And I have a lot of art supplies and stuff. Um, but I did my best. And I did get my tubes tied after Andrew. But then about 2 years later, I got pregnant again. And, I knew it was gonna be a girl. I just knew it. And so, I had to go see a specialist since I had already had, 4 C-sections, and they were all breech and all early, except for my second, just 3 weeks early. Andrew was 4 weeks early. Um, we found out it was a girl, and, so her name is Emily Ray, and we also found out that she had not been swallowing amniotic fluid. We found out that she had what's called micronathia, which is a recessed chin. So, in normal circumstances, it can be corrected either just as they grow or with surgery. Um, and I also didn't know she was going to even have hands because all the scans were, she was kind of tucked them under her chin. And her legs were, she was kind of shaped like a U. And so her feet were always in her face. Um, And the further along I got, I also had to have a nurse come by once a week to give me injections to keep me from going into labor early, which looking back, I kind of wish I hadn't, because I don't know if that had anything to do with any of her things that was going on with her. Um, but we had company over um, from our church, and he had smoked a chicken. And I guess I didn't realize I'm allergic to oak, and so the chicken was smoked in oak, and so I'd gotten a really bad migraine, and my blood pressure went sky high. It was like, 198 over 112, which is pretty bad. So the nurse said, "You need to go to the hospital." So I went, and, they decided that, her heart rate was not stable, and it was just kinda up and down, and so they were gonna lifelike me. And so, I called my husband, and they put me in a helicopter and took me downtown, to the Texas Women's and Children's, Hospital. And I counted, it was 8 minutes, from Conroe, where we were living at the time, just north of Houston, 8 minutes to downtown. My husband and our pastor somehow met us. I don't know if they left while they were prepping me, but met me, um, up on the roof when we got there. And I get motion sickness a lot, so I was surprised that I didn't get sick in the helicopter because it was just like being on a bird, and you're just kinda like, "Whoosh," like that. We get there, and, they wheel me in and do this 2-hour, um, ultrasound, which was not pleasant 'cause, a lot of it was transvaginal. And that's when we found out that, her brain did not develop past 8 weeks in utero. And, they had the chaplain come. So I had my pastor, my husband, we had another couple that, had come up there to pray with us because we were told that she probably would not be born, breathing. And so, I just, didn't wanna believe it. But the one of the doctors just was so gloomy, nothing positive at all came out of his mouth. And um, I just immediately started praying for him, um, because I was just like, it's just sad no matter the outcome. Like, we still love her, and we still wanted her. And I'll backtrack a little bit, like, the OBGYN that I had kept ushering me, like, wanting me to do the amniocentesis before the cutoff, and I was like, "I'm not gonna do it." I knew that it could harm her, and no matter what, I'm keeping her. So, I also had a traumatic with my 4th son, the with the C-section. When they did the epidural, they punctured my spine, and I jumped off the table and thought that they paralyzed me. So it was pretty traumatic for me. So I didn't know beforehand that, she was the way that she was. And so the doctor said that I could be knocked out, to have her because it was a C-section. So when I was told that I couldn't be knocked out, I had to have an epidural. I I kind of panicked because I had such a bad reaction with the last one. And so, I mean, they could have done it, but they said for the health of the baby, you need to have the epidural. And so that was really, um, traumatic for me. I was scared, but I just, I had to pray and ask God to give me the strength to do this because I was just so fearful, because you're getting poked in your spine. So they gave me a step stool to put my feet on. They gave me a pillow, and I was able to lean over um to have this, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. But so I had her. I did hear her cry, so she did come out breathing. I almost died. I lost almost 2 liters of blood, and but I got to see her, and they did some testing on her. Um, they sorry, they found out that her micronathia was neurological and not physical. You cannot be taught to breathe. And so they also found out her brain did not develop past 8 weeks in utero. And she developed something called arthrogryposis, which is severe constrictures of your body. And so I actually Googled it. And there's not a lot of babies that have all of what she had. She had to be on morphine and Ativan because of the pain that she was in, and her blood pressure would just spike. And we had meetings with her team to discuss her care. So they never treated her without dignity. They always treated her like she would be able to come home with us. And because I almost died, they gave me I think it was anti-seizure medicine, and a bunch of other stuff to keep my blood pressure down. And it was the first time that because I couldn't do anything for myself. I couldn't keep my eyes open. Um, I couldn't even raise my hands. I couldn't eat by myself. I couldn't sit up by myself. My husband had to care for me. And it was the first time that I felt nurtured from him. And I told him that that is the support that I had been needing. And so, like, I think he had had a really bad toothache, and he was having to stay on this little bitty spot in my room. Um, I will say this, like, he had to bathe me, and there were no towels in the bathroom. And so he was trying to like carry me back to the bed, and he dropped me. And I'm laying on the floor naked, completely naked, with the door open. And all I can see is people walking by, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But he ran to get towels, and like he even had to pump for me because I couldn't do it by myself. And since I couldn't keep my eyes open, I couldn't even see who the nurse was that was helping. And so I finally was going to be able to be wheeled in to go see her. And she's hooked up to all the wires. Um, and she can't move. She can't move on her own. You know, she's still kind of shaped like a U. Um, but I got to hold her, and I put her in my shirt. And they also said that she was probably blind and possibly deaf, but I was singing to her. Um, and I know she could hear me because she was straining to look up at me. And then one of the meetings that we had, because of her brain, the lack of development, and that they just said that she wasn't going to grow, and keeping her on life support was, I don't want to say selfish, but it wasn't doing anything. Like she was just there. And they did all those tests, like they did DNA or whatever, like swabbed me and my husband and her. So all the testing, so all of her things that she had, it was just an anomaly. Like it was nothing that came from us. And so we had to make the decision to take her off life support. So we picked a day, and they put us in this really beautiful palliative room, and it had murals on the wall that just kind of looked like heaven. And so we got to pick out an outfit out of the cabinet for her. I got to brush her hair. I got to bathe her. We got to take her off all the wires to hold her without being connected. Um, she was there 22 days in the NICU. And I remember laying on the bed and holding her, and I still had hope that she would live because she started peeing, you know, but the nurse had told me that it was just her body shutting down. And then the last time that she came in, The last time she came to check her vitals, I was holding her, and it was almost like God was holding me, and I felt his presence when he took her to heaven. And it was this peace that I just cannot explain. But we were there with her, holding her. And I know that she felt loved. I wanted to make sure that she just felt love from us. So she is in heaven. But I will say, um, most couples, they don't survive a child that dies. And this drew us closer because we supported each other. And I don't know, it was just all God. Um and the funeral was really hard. Um I wore white. I wore white, and because I didn't want people to be super sad. And my mom couldn't come in to the little room before we had the funeral because she'd lost my sister. She didn't get to go to her funeral. I remember staring down at the little gravestone for my sister. I think I was like 4, but it was really hard for her, and I understood. It wasn't like she was not trying to be there for me, but I understood that. Um, but I got pregnant again a year later, and uh I had to go to that appointment without my husband because he had to work and he couldn't take off. So I had 2 friends come with me, but I had to walk back there by myself. And I it was my first ultrasound with a really super high risk doctor. And so I was back there, and he said, "I'm sorry, your baby doesn't have a heartbeat." And I was 13 and a half weeks, and I was heartbroken um, because my husband wasn't there with me, and we didn't know. Um, and I drove, and so we drove back home, and I I remember having to set up the appointment to have the DNC. So I had to sit in a room with other ladies who are pregnant and waiting for their ultrasounds. And it was really hard because, like, you can't just tell them, can you just stop talking about your babies and all of that. Um, but I didn't really understand what a DNC was. To me, I associated it with an abortion. And so when I had it done, I told my doctor in the little prep room, I need you to knock me out before we leave this room. I don't want to see the machine. I don't want to hear it. And I don't even want to see you. And I want to wake up back in here. And he respected my wishes. But it took me about 10 years to realize that it was just a clean out. It wasn't an abortion because my baby was already gone. And it took a long time, even though I was a Christian and I knew all these things. It was kind of traumatic. But I had friends and I had my cousin who helped me get through that. Um, but again, like my husband was just so nurturing and caring, whereas before, wasn't. But um, so yeah, that was it. And then he finally had to get a vasectomy because I kept getting pregnant after my tubes were tied. And they were still tied because my doctor even said like your scar tissue just kind of built a little canal, and that's how it got through. And so finally uh yeah, no more. But even then after that, I still kept thinking like I don't know, months and months later, like, am I pregnant? Like, because, I'd feel certain things and I would take tests. Like, I think I took probably eight tests after all of that because I kind of still wanted to have another baby, but just couldn't. And so, yeah, that was really hard. But God carried me through it. Um, we Uh, I guess fast forward to now, we've raised our boys in church like they've never not known um a free weekend because we've kept them in church like I think it's been 27 years. Um, but we're fortunate enough to be able to serve in our church. Our sons serve. Each of our sons have gotten saved and baptized. Uh, One of the verses that got me through losing my daughter was Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And so God can take something bad and traumatic and turn it to good. Um, my mom is a Christian and my present stepdad is a Christian. I often do we kind of pray at night before bed and do a little devotional. Um, I shared I shared Jesus with my former stepdad. I still talk to him. We went 9 years without talking, and just this past September, we reconnected. Um, it's been hard because he's older. He's on oxygen. Um, I had to find him an assisted living home to live in. It's been hard to forgive, but it is possible. I'm still working through it. I know you're just supposed to just forgive, but my kids are actually having a hard time with that, because like he didn't just stop talking to me, it was also my kids too. And um I am not going to encourage them. I encourage them to forgive, but it's up to them if they want a relationship with him, but it's also up to him to pursue that. Like he's a grown up. He can do that. Because when I was little, even through the abuse, my mom made me um kind of get over all of that, like when I was younger and all the stuff that I'd seen with my parents. And I I don't believe that I should make my kids do what they don't want to do. So if they're ready to have a relationship with him, then I'll let them make that decision. But um we're able to serve in an amazing church and have a great church family with a great support system. Um I and my husband serve in our student ministry teaching eighth grade girls, and I get to kind of co-lead um a high school girls Bible study when she has it. But I've grown a lot. I've learned. I did go to Bible college. I was fortunate enough with our old church in Conroe. They had a 3-year satellite school. So I'm not, I'm not a Bible scholar by any means. Like you can read the Bible like 10 times over and still not know everything. But I have grown so much in my faith, and I love sharing Jesus. Um, but I'm still not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. Like God has totally changed me from the inside out. And my prayer is for when people talk to me or see me, that they don't see me, they hear and see Jesus. And I'm still working through that because I still have trauma that I'm dealing with. Um, but it's God that has completely like overhauled my thought process, my life, my um my desires, because we're flesh and we want what we want. So music will always be, just because of my background, like I still love all kinds of music. I still listen to all kinds of music. Um I I don't do the things that I used to do. I don't have the desires to do it. God took away the alcoholism out of me. I will have a drink every once in a while, but I'm not an addict, and it's all God. Like I cannot explain it, but it's supernatural. And you know, I cannot imagine losing babies and not having God um, in that with me, because I honestly don't know that I could have survived. Like at one point, I did want to lay down and die, but my husband, being who he is, he's like, "No, you have four boys that need you, and they need to see their mother living. And for a while I did try, I still sometimes go in my closet and cry because you're losing a part of you. Um, it's not
Yeah.
easy. And it's not something you get over. You'll never get over it. But grief is like the ocean, it ebbs and flows, and there's highs and lows. I could smell a certain smell, and it just takes me right back to when she was in my arms, and I'll break down and cry. Um, it's emotional. Just because you're saved and God did these things doesn't mean you're not human and you don't have feelings and you don't grieve because we do. We're human. But I'll always have that. But at least now with my past and my background, I'm able to share and help people know that there's still hope because I'll see her one day and my other baby. Um, but through all that, my husband and I have a really good relationship and it's not perfect. We still have arguments, we still fight. Um, but we overcome it because we have our foundation and our center. Um, and so, I wish everything was perfect because I have two sons. My two younger sons they bicker all the time. And I'm just like, I wish you guys could just see what I see. Um, but, I know that they all love Jesus and they're still learning too. No one's perfect. But, but that's my story. And I know I left a lot out. But yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know that took a lot of courage to share those things. And that the part at the end, really, I know that it's got to be extremely hard to revisit that moment and talk about it all over again. I can't even imagine. So I'm going to try to keep these brief real quick since we're already approaching like 10:30, but I do have like two questions for you and I just want to say two things. And then I probably have some more questions, but I'll do that after we stop the recording. Um, I first want to say because it was like the first thing I picked up on was I noticed your prayer before we started about you want people to see Jesus through you. You hope people see Jesus through you. And then one of the first things that you had said towards the beginning of you speaking was that you forgive others and you think it's one of your downfalls. And I, in my mind, I was like, that's so funny that you think it's a downfall because here I am viewing her as Christ-like because of this trait that she thinks is a downfall, which is completely opposite. A lot of people just cannot forgive others and they get a hardened heart and they get bitter and they hold grudges, a lot of people,
Yeah.
and they hold on to that for a long time and sometimes forever.
Yeah.
So I hope you eventually switch that around to thinking, um, that that is not a downfall at all. That is definitely a trait of Jesus, and I think that it's awesome. I understand kind of what you're saying because it's hard when you're dealing with abuse and
Yeah.
people that do you wrong and dirty, and it's things that should have never happened to you. But um, we're humans of the flesh, and Jesus says otherwise.
Yeah.
So. I just had to say that
Yeah.
because I
Thank
thought
you.
that I was like, she's so funny. Like she just prayed that she wants us to see her as this, that that's so not a downfall. That's such a good trait to have. So I love that. Please don't think that's a downfall. Um, I'm gonna mention this and I'm gonna ask my two questions. Okay. Real quick, I just wanted to say that I'm really glad you actually opened up about the moment when you were watching Montel Williams and you experienced these sounds and the tap on your shoulder because I literally just had this conversation with Amy, I think 2 nights ago, and we were sharing some stories about some things that have happened, and we were like, we've never shared these stories with anybody ever. And we probably didn't because people think that you're crazy, some kind of lunatic or,
Yeah.
whatever. It's just not something that you want to like go around and talk to people about and open up
Yeah.
and share like, hey, I've heard these things and felt this, people are gonna be like,
Yeah.
but I think it definitely needs to be talked about more because it's something that happens, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. I think people are probably scared to talk about it and bring it up because obviously it's something that we don't want happening to us, and it's not godlike, and it's demons. But
Right.
um, I think also it's good to open up about these things and get it off your heart and get it off your chest and speak to other people that understand what you're talking about and know that you're not
Yeah.
crazy, you know,
Right.
like you're not crazy in the head. It's not just you.
Yeah.
So, thank you for actually saying that. I really was glad that you opened up about that. Um, and I know you shared the verse from Romans, but do you have any actual like words of encouragement for other women that have also experienced miscarriages or having to um, make that decision because maybe their baby was not thriving and they had to do that? Do you have any words of encouragement?
Yes.
Because I do know some personal friends of mine that have dealt with a lot of miscarriages and they still are trying to get through it, and it's tough, especially when it's
Yeah.
fresh and new.
Yeah. So, we put on her we got to kinda, make her, it's not a headstone, but it's like it's flat, but we got to make it, and I put on there, Psalms 139:14, "For I praise you, for I'm fearfully, wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well." But the verse right before it says, because it's meaningful to her, "For you formed my inward parts, you knitted me together in my mother's womb." And so, even though she wasn't formed like a normal baby, she was made perfect in
Yeah.
God's image as we are. Um, but I will say that for women who have lost children, whether miscarriage, abortion, later on in life, suicide, God, God knows. Nothing catches him off, by surprise. And I won't say that it's his plan or his will, just things happen. And all we can do is just pray and ask God to help. Um, I'm not even going to say like get over it because it's not something you get over, but God can bring something good from this. And we may not see it because I still questioned for the longest time, like, maybe I didn't pray hard enough. Maybe I wasn't a good enough Christian, because the Bible says that God wants to give us the desires of our heart. And I was like, but I desired to have a daughter. I wanted her and I wanted her how she was. But honestly, with my husband and I, the way that we were going, I think it was sort of like a protection because I think we would have ended up divorced had we had her and all of her extra things like therapies and stuff because I was already very involved with my youngest son. Like it was at least three times a week, taking him all the way to Texas Children's Hospital for his therapies. Um, but I would encourage someone join a group. There's something called MEND, and it's Mothers Enduring Neonatal Death. There are other ones, Now I'll Lay Me Down to Sleep, and then there are some for those who've lost children to suicide. I don't know the name of it, but they meet at least once a month. Plus, there's also grief care through churches. Our main campus has a grief care. I went to a couple of the Mend and the Now Lay Me Down to Sleep meetings, but they just weren't at the time. They weren't really close to me like drive wise and having 4 kids, because she would be 13 this year. So it
Wow.
just wasn't very close, but they have Zoom now. And so you can get help and counseling and talk with other people who've lost children. So you're not alone. There is help. And I would say, because like I have known someone who took their life after their child left, and that's not the answer. There's help, and so you're not alone, and there are people that can help you and support you and give you the help that you need. Um, because although I had some friends, I I'm okay. I'm okay not being around a lot of people. I like my alone time. And so my husband was always like, "You need to get some more friends and do this and do that." And I'm like, "But it's sometimes two people." I'm okay. I'm okay. And so
I
but
get that.
yeah. but it is good to be an encourager too, because like, you not only get blessed, but you can be a blessing. And so that's something that I've learned, to be a blessing, not just to get blessed, but because God can use anybody. Everybody who's been saved has a story. And I was just sharing with one of my eighth grade girls last week because she said um, that she got saved when she was around 2. And I said, well, even though you grew up in church, you still have a story. You may not have something before, but you have something how God's using you now. And you can use that to share and draw people to Jesus. And so, um, yeah.
Aw. Um, okay, that is great. I'm gonna ask you a
Anything.
question about kind of still regarding this, but I just know that this is a thought that some um have thought before, and it's a tough one, but when dealing with miscarriages, a thought that comes to mind from them a lot of times is, why would God allow this to happen to me? And I know that you said in your experience, it was probably protection for your marriage because it would have been a lot on the two of you, um, especially with already dealing with your youngest son and having to take him to many appointments. So I think you kind of figured that out early on, like this was God's plan, and you were kind of resting in that, and you had a little bit of peace, kind of knowing that God had this plan for you. But maybe for girls that aren't as close with God and are having a tough time, with that, like wondering, why would God allow this to happen to me? Do you have anything to say to them?
Um, Spiritually speaking, we're in a broken world. And since, like in the very beginning, God created everything. He created Adam and Eve. They were perfect, but then sin happened. And so because of sin, we have childbirth that's painful. There's thorns on flowers, we still have beauty, but we're in a broken world. And so we don't always have answers. And I will never have the answers probably until I'm in heaven of why God allowed me to get pregnant after my tubes were tied. And I will say my husband was also on testosterone shots. So his swimmers were not even supposed to be working. And I still got pregnant twice. And it's so hard sometimes because I've gone to baby showers, you know, um, I went to one that was, probably shortly after I think it was after my miscarriage, um, and that was really hard, but I wanted to be there to support my friend, and so, I kinda just shoved it down and cried when I got home. You know, it's gotten a lot better now, because I do share. Everybody that knows me knows that I've lost, 2 babies, and so it is so hard. Like, I was even sharing today at my Bible study this morning, and I still, like, tear up. It's not, um it's never going to not be a part of me, but, I just try to be encouraging that, you know, sometimes things happen in life that we just are never gonna know, but God has a plan. Um, I will share this. I have a friend who she has 4 kids, but 2 of her kids have cancer. Her son, it's her youngest son, this is his 2nd bout with brain cancer. There's 2 different types of cancer, and this time it's terminal. And then, her daughter, I think, has, uh, some kind of GI cancer. She's waiting for a liver transplant. And she's got another type of, cancer, and that daughter is just newly married. So, I don't know why God allows things to happen, but I know that there is a plan and there is a purpose. Um, but all through this, she's done nothing but reach out to God, praise God, and, it's very apparent that her faith is just strong and focused, even though she doesn't know why this is happening. But, you know, she knows she's gonna lose her son, so they're just cherishing what time they have. Um, left with him. And so, I mean, he's even paralyzed on one side of his body. I think blind in one eye because of all the pressure in his brain. They've had to reroute. Um, so I guess with the cancer, it caused hydrocephalus, and so they had to reroute put another like a shunt extension in there to reroute the fluid to drain out. Um,
Wow. That
but
is, yeah,
God, God still cares for us, but we have to give our burdens to him, and it's really hard sometimes. It's even hard because we want to take care of it all ourselves, but when you allow God to take those burdens, it's literally like taking 50 pounds off your body, off your shoulders. um and I will talk about the bitterness. um I think I did let bitterness set in me for a long time towards my stepdad, because my body literally physically started to ache, my joints. But the more that I allow God to work in me, the less pain I feel in my body, because it's physical. It's not a mental thing, it's physical. And it does say that in the Bible. I wish I could pop it off right offhand, but I don't have it in my head. But it does say that when you become bitter, it affects your bones, and you will start to ache. And so the more that I work on forgiving, the the better I feel.
yeah,
And nobody understands that, like how I can be so forgiving, but it's something that it's not for him. It's for me. Like
yeah,
I have to forgive for me.
yeah,
And so it's hard. It's a process. I wish it was instantaneous, but it's not. But and I do let my bitterness sometimes leak out onto him. Um I had to get on yesterday about the medicines. So, but
but you're
yeah,
intentional with working on it, and
yeah,
you can kind of keep yourself in check.
yeah,
So that's what's important. We're not perfect, but
yeah,
I'm glad that you're aware of it, and you know how to keep yourself in check. I dealt with bitterness for a long time, so um it's very freeing when you finally
yeah,
forgive somebody. It really
yes,
is. It's totally not for anybody else. It's really
yeah,
to free yourself and your mind and the weight that's weighing heavy on your heart and your shoulders. So I agree, 100%. Thank you. I'm gonna ask one more question, and then we're gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and then I will open it up for other people to ask some questions real quick. Do you think it's safe to say that you and your husband broke some generational curses when it came to y'all?
definitely.
Yeah.
Jesus is a chain breaker, and him coming and he was a drug addict as well. Um,
Okay.
he comes from California. He was actually meth. He was into meth, whatever other drugs he was into. He was literally bringing illegals across the border, because he was, near Tijuana. He I There was a picture of him shortly after I met him. I found that he had a gun. Um, so he was kind of, he grew up in Compton and Inglewood, so that should tell you a
Um,
lot. So
yeah.
he was, his school, he wasn't, I think he was like maybe one of two white people. So he was in the gang area. Not, I don't think he may have been part of a gang. But that's his story. But yeah, his birth father was a heroin addict, and he had to like literally, like his dad's passed out, he had to pull needles out. FBI came to the door. He was a bank robber. No gun though. Like literally, I think in California, if you just put a note on the counter and say, "Give me your money," they have to give it to you. And so he was in prison. His dad got saved, but then his dad
He
died.
was successful at robbing the bank.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Um, but so my mother-in-law got saved, and like I love her. Um, we have a really good relationship. My mom is a Christian, but my husband, like I said, just not very nurturing, which I don't understand because his mother is so loving. So I mean, he's loving now, like nurturing, but he had to grow into it. When he was young. I'm a little older than him. I don't want to share right now,
That's
but
okay.
but um, but yeah, he. So we both come from broken homes, and
Wow.
we both busted those, well, God busted those chains, like, because there were drugs in his home, there was drugs and alcohol in my home, and we never had that in our house, like, growing up. My kids, I did yell. I will say that I did yell at my kids, and being sober yelling. And so I'm sure that was really scary, but sometimes you have to yell, like, get out of the street, don't touch the burner, things
Yeah.
like that. But like, my kids are fighting, and I'm not always loud. Like, I'm a quiet person, but I have to, I'm short. They're all tall. My baby is 6'1", and so he's my tallest. So yelling is the worst I ever did. And I'd probably slam some doors and threw some things, but not perfect. But yes, God is a chain breaker and no addictions. And so praise God, because that certainly could have been a possibility. And I prayed very hard that that would not happen with my family, because that was something that I thought could have been a real possibility. And so yeah.
Well, that is that is amazing, and I'm really proud of you also for not turning to alcohol, after losing your daughter, because that is, that's a different feeling. Obviously I don't know, and a lot of us don't, and
I was even
I hope
too
we
afraid
never
to
do.
take the, what do they give you, Vicodin for pain?
Hmm.
Like, when I was, after I had my C-section with my first son, I wanted to try to nurse, breastfeed, and, because of the schedule that I had to change around, because I was still staying up till 2, having friends over, I was even too afraid to take the Vicodin for my pain. And so I just kind of dealt with it. And that was a really traumatic birth for me, because C-section, wasn't planning on it, and it was very painful. So I just dealt with all of them with no pain medicine afterwards,
Wow. Wow.
because I didn't want to get addicted. I had friends that became addicts from pain medicine, and so I did not want to be like that, and I guarded myself very well. So the most I take now is like Tylenol, ibuprofen.
Well, good for you. Wow, that is amazing. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close us out for our recording, and then if anybody on the live here has any questions, I'll open it up for y'all to ask your questions. But for everybody joining us on YouTube, thank you for watching. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Ladies, if you'd like to join us for other Testimony Tuesdays and other events that we'll be hosting, please find us on our private Facebook group. It is under Soul Sisters Synergy. Answer a couple questions and you're in. So we hope to see you there. We hope you can join us. Again, these sessions are live, so we have ladies on here with us now. And once we end this recording, we will open it up for a live Q&A. So we hope you get to join us next time. Thanks again.